attacks were carried out with full knowledge that civilians were inside the vehicle after direct coordination with the Palestinian Red Crescent. Attacks that amount to war crimes, crimes against humanity.
Since then, we spent about $253 billion on trying to perfect a national missile defense system. Nothing has worked. All we have to show for that effort is 44 interceptors.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to the Struggle Video News. We begin with a major piece of work done by Al Jazeera and the Hind Rajab Foundation about the Israeli so-called vampire empire that allegedly murdered Hind Rajab and the ambulance workers sent to rescue her.
They filmed themselves flattening Gaza. Now, more and more of their names are on the desk of prosecutors at The Hague. 24 Israeli soldiers and commanders have been named in a new war crimes complaint at the International Criminal Court, accused of killing 6-year-old Hind Rajab, her family, and the medics who tried to rescue her. Her final plea for help was heard around the world. The complaint named senior figures in Israel's 401st Armored Brigade: Colonel Benny Aharon, Brigade Commander; Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Eller, Commander of the 52nd Armored Battalion; and Major Sean Glass. At the center of it all is a tank company that called itself the Vampire Empire. Led by Major Sean Glass, they're now publicly named in the ICC complaint. The 120-page legal submission details how Merkava IV tanks from the Vampire Empire repeatedly fired on Rajab's family car and later targeted the ambulance sent to reach them. 22 other soldiers from that same company will be revealed progressively as national-level cases are filed. It was an Al Jazeera investigation made with the Hind Rajab Foundation that revealed the details. The attacks were carried out with full knowledge that civilians were inside the vehicle after direct coordination with the Palestinian Red Crescent. Attacks that amount to war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. The prosecutions have been moving forward worldwide, not just at The Hague. Among them is Itay Shukyakov, a crew member from the same Vampire Empire unit, holding both Israeli and Argentinian citizenship. Back in January 2025, Brazil became the first country to independently launch a war crime probe into him, an unprecedented move that sent shockwaves through the Israeli military and diplomatic circles.
אבל אין ספק בכלל שמאז הוצאת צווי המעצר יותר ויותר מדינות מרגישות שיש להן רוח גבית לפתוח בהליכים פליליים נגד חיילים בסדיר או במילואים, וארגונים פרו-פלסטינים ממש אקטיבית מנסים להוביל לכך.
The HRF says new filings are being prepared across Europe, South America and North America, ensuring no suspect can hide behind a border or a second passport. More than 8,000 pieces of evidence have now been compiled, a living archive of accountability. The Vampire Empire company once branded itself with Israeli pride, soldiers boasting online as they destroyed a city. Now, its name sits inside an international war crimes file. For Hind Rajab, justice may begin with theirs.
Now, testimony from an Israeli who coordinates BDS work. Surprisingly, he admits that he's the grandson of a war criminal.
I must begin by saying that I am speaking in my role as the coordinator of the military embargo campaign of the BDS movement, but also as the grandson of Israel Magali, a war criminal who has participated in the massacre in Lid, one of the atrocities of the Nakba in 1948. Over 400 of the city's residents were killed in the massacre, and about 70,000 were expelled in the March of Death to the West Bank. 77 years ago, the world witnessed the planned expulsion of over 750,000 Palestinians from their homes, a deliberate, systematic destruction of society known as the Nakba. Yet today we gather not only in memory of that injustice, but in witness to its continuation. Millions around the world are not silent. Many states are not silent. But many, especially in the colonial West, are not just silent, but entirely complicit. The genocide is perpetrated mostly with US-made weapons, also with military and dual-use material and military intelligence from Germany, the UK, Italy, France, Netherlands, Greece, Cyprus, Serbia, India, Japan, even Vietnam, among others. The bombs are dropped by US F-35 jets with parts manufactured in 17 countries. Without these weapons, there will be no genocide, no apartheid, and the Nakba will end. The military embargo against Israel is a legal and moral duty. And yet, while Palestinians bury tens of thousands of their children in mass graves, complicit states, weapon manufacturers, energy and tech companies continue to arm and otherwise enable the perpetrators. It may take some time, but accountability will come. As I know from Jewish history, it will come for the governments that have authorized arms export permits to Israel in full knowledge of its atrocity crimes. It will come to the corporations that have enabled and profited from genocide. It will come to the energy companies like Chevron and also to the shipping companies such as Maersk and Zim that have illegally delivered deadly cargo to Israel throughout this genocide. The live-streamed genocide in Gaza will remain a dark stain on human history. It is not too late to change course, to impose on apartheid Israel a comprehensive military embargo, as was done against apartheid South Africa. This is for Palestinians, for humanity, for what remains of the credibility of international law and the UN itself. The UN was deeply complicit in the 1948 Nakba. It and its member states, each and every one, must end it now. Palestinians cannot wait any longer. Thank you.
Pretty brave for him to talk about his grandfather. Now we turn to the U.S. Secretary of State, who talks about plans for the recovery of Gaza and UNRWA.
What role UNRWA might play in...
UNRWA's not going to play any role in it.
Okay.
UNRWA's not going to play any role in it. The UN is here. The UN is, we're seeing the work they're doing, the World Food Program. There's also not-profit NGOs, humanitarian assistance organizations that are involved in this. We're willing to work with them if they can make it work, but not UNRWA. UNRWA became a subsidiary of Hamas.
Noor Oda replied for Al Jazeera that the proclamation by Rubio that UNRWA was a Hamas subsidiary is quite shocking and devastating for UNRWA and all who are involved in Gaza. UNRWA was not only exonerated by the International Court of Justice and 2 separate commissions of inquiry, but also has the largest, most extensive aid mechanism in Gaza. Oda says it has thousands of employees, it has the data to distribute aid to Palestinians with dignity and in an orderly fashion. More coverage here about the illegal detention of American citizen Mohammed Ibrahim.
Today's a little bit over 8 months. We got nowhere. We're same as day one.
Mohammed Ibrahim, a Palestinian American, was arrested from his West Bank home in the middle of the night in February of 2025 at the age of 15.
So this is the door the soldiers came in?
Yeah, this is so they asked me who's in the house. I told them my daughter, my little son.
How many were there?
A lot.
This is his room.
Yes.
I have to just say, when I first saw this, in my head I was thinking, what would he have graduated from in 2009? Yes. And then I realized that's the year he was born.
I told him get up and took him outside and handcuffed him and blindfolded him and threw him.
And you've not seen him since? And they didn't tell you where they were taking him or what he was being taken for?
Nothing. Today's 8 months and a couple of days actually.
It was in February, so he was in school when this was happening.
He was in school.
Appetite booster. He was a little guy.
Yes.
He was trying to bulk up.
I mean, first of all, his little toys in here. He's a kid.
He was a kid.
So, all these phone calls and still in there. So the U.S. government, it's their duty. Anybody that's in the U.S. government, their duty is to bring home any American citizen. And Israel prison is one of the worst prisons in the world. Weight loss, scabies. They only get 10 minutes a day outside, so the rest are in a cell, crowded cell. A cell that fits 8 people, they have 16 in there. So from day one, they said, we're working on it. And then you go to for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, we're at 8 months. He missed about half of last year's school. He's missing this year's school. There's no progress, So I think the U.S. government either do something or admit you can't do nothing. If you don't have the power to release a little kid, U.S. citizen, just say you have no power. But tell us something, instead of hiding, ignoring our phone calls, ignoring our emails. We're done with that, Either do something or say, we can't do nothing, and we'll find a different route.
You may recall that 2 weeks ago I mentioned that Ibrahim's congressman, Haradopoulos, that I had called the office and asked what they were doing to free the American citizen. So far, no response from Congressman Haradopoulos, and nothing about the case on this Florida congressman's website. Switching subjects, a new film is out by major director Catherine Bigelow, who won an Academy Award for The Hurt Locker. It's out on Netflix. It's called A House of Dynamite, and it's a powerful dramatization of the start of a nuclear war, a war which the film portrays as insane. I did a short interview about the film with Joe Cirincirone. It's October 23rd, 2025. I'll be speaking to Joe Cirincirone about the new movie on nuclear war called A House of Dynamite, which is appearing October 24th for the first time on Netflix. He's a security analyst and author with over 40 years of experience. He's been a congressional staffer, an advisor on 3 presidential campaigns, and a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. He served as president of the Plowshares Fund, a foundation focused on nuclear non-proliferation. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
You have a blog on Substack called Strategy and History. In your most recent piece, you talk about the movie A House of Dynamite, and you highlight the movie's depiction of the U.S. National Missile Defense System. Back in 2020, you tell us, President Trump's Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Nuclear and Missile Defense Policy, Robert Sufer, assured the nation that the military has protection against an attack by a rogue state. What's your response to his claim?
Well, we've had a series of officials and generals come up to the Congress for many years now, assuring the members of Congress that we have a system that can protect the United States from ballistic missile attack. This is simply not true. They are pumping a deeply flawed and failed program. As many of you know, the search for a protective shield for the United States began a very long time ago, but was given a new boost in life when Ronald Reagan in 1983 called for a shield that could protect America from ballistic missiles, just as a roof protects a family from rain. The SDI program, so-called Star Wars program. Since then, we spent about $253 billion on trying to perfect a national missile defense system. Nothing has worked. All we have to show for that effort is 44 interceptors in Alaska and a couple in California that are designed to protect against a ballistic missile attack. But these interceptors are so deeply flawed that they have a minuscule chance of actually intercepting a ballistic missile. We are completely unprotected from a nuclear attack, as we always have been in the 80 years of the nuclear age.
Well, but they've created this system, as you mentioned, 44 operational units. I assume they've tested these things.
They have sporadically. The last test was conducted in December 2023. The one before that was in 2020. The one before that in 2019. I mean, they just don't test them very much. There's been 20 total tests, and in those 20 total tests of this system, half the time, 11 times, they've actually hit the target. These are carefully scripted tests. They know exactly where the warhead is coming in, what its trajectory is, what it looks like. They even have a transponder on the warhead to tell the interceptor, here I am, come get me. And even in these highly scripted tests, it only works half the time.
That's staggering. I mean, we're talking about, end of the world or end of the United States situations.
Well, it's an extremely difficult technological mission, and for years we've been sold a bill of goods that, yeah, we can do this. We're America, right? And we can do anything we put our mind to. No. The builders of these systems describe this mission as hitting with a bullet with a bullet, which is accurate. Two very small objects traveling at very high speeds, thousands of miles apart. It's extremely difficult to do it. It's remarkable we can do it at all. Now, bear in mind, we can do this at short ranges with slower traveling rockets or what they call theater ballistic missiles. That's why Iron Dome in Israel works. That's going after Hamas rockets, or what used to be Hamas rockets, that are going tens of kilometers. They can hit those. They're traveling very slow. There's lots of interceptors that are themselves little rockets that can go out. You can even do it with longer range rockets like Scud ranges, couple of hundred. Again, slower rockets traveling in the atmosphere. But when you go to ICBM ranges, it's a whole different ball game. And we have had no success in developing a reliable system, nor has any other countries in doing so. It is just technologically impossible to do this now and for the foreseeable future.
And it's not just you who is saying this. You quote in the piece the American Physical Society. What is that?
The American Physical Society is the leading organization of American physicists in America.
And just again, how much is this costing? You give a figure for, I think, the last year or so for the Fort Greely ground-based missile defense. How much is that?
In House of Dynamite, they talk about it as we spent $50 billion on it. That's close. It's actually $64 billion under the whole system, and it just doesn't work. Now, the Golden Dome, which Donald Trump is proposing we replace it, tries to overcome the problems of trying to hit a bullet with a bullet, a ground-based interceptor going up to intercept a warhead coming in at mid-course by placing weapon satellites in space. Thousands of weapon satellites in space, and supposedly these little rockets can hit the warheads as they get closer to them, or can even do what they call boost phase intercept, hit the enemy rocket as it's arising. But that itself is an old idea. The SDI program tried this out in the 80s and 90s. It failed. Again, technologically impossible. And one of the reasons is just how many of satellites it takes to do this. Thousands, even tens of thousands of satellites, and the complexity of launching, operating, and maintaining a system of that complexity. We're not even close to that kind of capability.
Well, we'll link to your piece on your blog, Strategy and History. I want to thank you very much for speaking with me.
My pleasure.
One thing that comes out in the film is that presidents never take part in the drills by Stratcom, drills about nuclear warfare. The fictional president in the movie at one point says in agony, "I had one briefing when I was sworn in. One." And a briefing is not a drill. A briefing just talks about the nuclear football and the codes and the fat menu in the briefcase of nuclear targets. Promoting Enduring Peace has come out with a new petition. It simply calls on President Trump to take part in nuclear drills in hopes that seeing things played out dramatically might cause him to act just as it did with Ronald Reagan in the 1980s to take nuclear war seriously and to take measures to minimize things. You can find the petition at tinyurl.com/nuclear-drills. For more on this, I wrote an article that was published on the site of New Politics. It's called President Has 6 Minutes to Decide on Nuclear War Launch.
Say it once, say it twice. We will not put up with ICE.
Last week we had coverage of the Danbury Unites for Immigrant press conference. We didn't have room for these very smart remarks by Dan Piper about how masses of immigrants 20 years ago in the U.S. stopped cold some very bad legislation that was being proposed.
I want to introduce Dan Piper, who is a union teacher and a member of the Connecticut Education Association and from the Connecticut Civil Liberties Defense Committee.
Thank you very much. I am here in part because of a debt that I owe to the immigrant community, and especially to the immigrant community of Danbury, both of whom showed working people throughout this state, throughout this country, what power looks like and how to fight back. It's not something that you see very much remembered in the media, but I will remember it for the rest of my life. When I saw immigrants mobilizing throughout the United States in response to 2 anti-immigrant bills in 2006, starting in March, where? Chicago. Going on where? To LA. And then on April 10th, in practically every city with immigrants in this country, thousands mobilizing in Willimantic, New Haven, Hartford, Danbury, Waterbury, against the Sensenbrenner bill and the McCain bill. Both bills aim to reduce the status of immigrants to indentured servants and worse, felons, and those who help immigrants. The Sensenbrenner bill was designed to make teachers, doctors, lawyers, priests who worked with immigrants into felons. Immigrants mobilized against these bills on an unprecedented basis, culminating in a mass demonstration on May 1st, 2006, which shut down 2/3 of meatpacking because immigrant workers didn't go to work that day, which shut down the service sector, fast food, manufacturing. It showed working people in this country what kind of power we have. And if you ask me, what is one of the central reasons why the Trump administration is targeting immigrants? It is because of that lesson. That is why they're going for Chicago. That is why they're going for LA. That is why they're coming to Danbury. Because in Danbury, we saw a fight here to free the Danbury 11, to stop their deportation. We saw a fight which was an example to people throughout this state and the country. The New York Times reported on it. Because this community fought against the Connecticut Citizens for Immigration Control, a racist vigilante group whose first meeting was 200 people who'd gone down to the border with guns and came up and said, hey, we're going to try to police immigrants here ourselves. This community mobilized in opposition to that racism, that hate, successfully, and showed what it was, and brought that group down from 200 to nothing, just by mobilizing, just by making their voices heard. And after the community had been terrorized by ICE raids and other actions, and brought down to a small number of demonstrations, when Mayor Boughton was working to pass the 287G program to deputize local police as ICE, the community mobilized again in thousands against that bill. So I owe a debt. The working people of this state owe a debt to the immigrant community and to the immigrant community in Danbury to show us how to fight. With the Trump administration, I want to back up one sec. These raids, the taking of parents, the taking of children from their families, As the other teacher who spoke here today pointed out, it is a truly horrific, brutal, inhuman thing to do. Anyone who's close to a child knows the kind of suffering that is caused by this, the kind of destruction that is caused by this. It's not just being done because people are careless or because they're hateful. This is being done because the people who are carrying out these raids, they want us all afraid so that they can reduce the conditions of our jobs, so they can reduce the conditions of our living standards, so they can make us work for less. On some levels, it is that simple. And they want us to think, if we stick our heads out, if we stick our necks out, maybe they won't come for us. They'll come for the next person. And they do that because they know they can't come for everybody at once. That's why ICE agents wear masks. They know they are in the minority. They know everybody finds this to be horrific. That's why they wear masks. So they want to convince us, when they come for one, leave them alone. Move on, ignore it. That's not what we're saying in Connecticut. In the Connecticut Civil Liberties Defense Committee, with members in Stamford, Hartford, New Haven, Willimantic, New London, we say an injury to Danbury is an injury to all. An injury to immigrants is an injury to all. If you come for our people in Danbury, we will be for our people in Danbury, because they are leaders in our community and they're showing us what kind of bravery we need to move forward and to make a better future. Thank you very much.
That's our program for today. See you next time. I'm Stanley Heller for the Struggle Video News.